we're going full mask off now. It's raised some questions of Mr. Wright's alibi. It's previously believed that the two witnesses stayed together until the police arrived, Your Honor. But if it now appears that one of the witnesses was in the main hall at some point, one must wonder how strong their alibi truly is. This warrants further discussion at the very least. You're kidding, right? Kristoph, come on, this is no time for jokes. I'm not joking, Wright. I want to know what you did at that main hall. I'd like to hear it from you, now. Alright. It's only there to use the payphone to call the police, that's all. So Mr. Wright was the first person to call the police, then? Yes, Your Honor. He was the one who called the police at 2:10 p.m. yesterday. Does nobody else find this all very questionable? What do you mean by that? Yes, what's wrong with that, Mr. Gavin? If you may recall, Your Honor, there was a landline phone in the staff lounge. You must have faster to use that to call the police than to use the payphone in the main hall. That's a good point, I suppose. In addition, we have learned from Miss Toom that she encountered Mr. Wright in the main hall at 2:25. We also know that the call to the police... We also know that the call Mr. Wright made to the police was at 2:10 p.m. Why would Mr. Wright stay in the main hall for 15 minutes after making the call to the police? What else would he do? What could he have been doing those 15 minutes? And why not simply return to the staff lounge? It's because... Your Honor, you must agree that these are some very strange actions. So strange, in fact, that they are fitting for the true killer to... Whoa, here we go! Kristoph? Mr. Gavin, are you accusing Phoenix Wright of the murder here? Believe me, I'd rather not, but I also can't deny this revelation makes me doubt his innocence. Request that Mr. Wright testifies about these matters this instant. It was only in the main hall after the murder happened, though. More importantly, continuing the trial today is of no benefit to your client. Please think about that, too. I know you want to find the truth, but we can't waste our advantage right now, for your client's sake. Concur with Mr. Wright once again here. I understand why you'd like to discuss this, Mr. Gavin, but why right now? We can always discuss this tomorrow as well. Determine that this latest information is the key to finding the truth of this case, Your Honor. Yet I feel that if we do not discuss this today, the truth could be very easily get obscured. Considering that, you must also agree it would be unwise to suspend the trial, no? Edgeworth is, suspicious. Kristoph, why do you keep acting so strange? Is there something you know that I don't? Earlier you were reluctant to accept that Miss Toom could be the culprit, too. You don't actually suspect me of the murder, do you? You should avoid further eye contact and dialogue with Wright for the time being. Very well, Mr. Gavin. I am willing to go by your expertise as a veteran attorney that you could be onto something. We will not suspend the trial and instead take a 15-minute recess. After which we'll hear from Mr. Wright about what he did in the main hall. However, Mr. Gavin, do note that by insisting we continue today, you have put your client at a severe risk. Any mistakes on your part after the recess will not look good on your client's current position. Acknowledged, Your Honor. Very good, then. Court is now in recess. Here we go. Gavin, what do you think you're doing? Why demand the trial to continue for the day? I thought I told you to play dirty, not recklessly. Would you not rather be free today than tomorrow, Miss Attal? I suppose so, but the odds are against us, aren't they? I'd wager it'd be better if you gathered more information about this case, hun. You underestimate me. Rest assured I have everything under control. I must say, you do have a lot of guts accusing your friend like that, at least. Follow! Mr. Gavin! Where's Mr. Wright? In the prosecutor's lobby. He and Mr. Edgeworth are discussing the testimony he's going to give after the recess. Sir, you weren't serious back at the courtroom, were you? You said that you questioned Mr. Wright's innocence. You don't seriously think it's possible Mr. Wright could be the killer, do you? It could very well be possible, Justice. He's involved in this case, after all. But he's your friend. There's no way someone like him could have done it, right? Besides, could you really betray a friend just because you suspect they could have killed someone? Justice, a lawyer must be steadfast in their pursuit for the truth, no matter how ugly it is. That truth would lead us to find out our friends are not who we thought they were. And it is our duty to expose that, even when it is hard to accept. If Wright's testimony would reveal he is the killer, then I shall do what I must. I can't believe this. If Wright really is the killer behind this case, I suppose that would make my task a bit easier. It doesn't matter, however. What's important is that I got him on the witness stand now. Instead, I should spend this recess uncovering something I've been wondering for a while now. Mr. Tal, there was something I wanted to ask you. Your fingerprints were found on the button that opens this secret passage. Does this mean you entered the vault through the secret passage all this time? Yeah, I did. I wish you had told me that sooner. Sorry, hon. I would have told you about the secret passage yesterday, but visiting hours suddenly ended, and I had to tell you the short version of how I entered the vault. Despite luck that not mentioning that tiny detail would make this case harder for the lawyer I picked. I didn't think that was all that important to mention yesterday. No use crying over spilled milk, I suppose. Brother, could you tell me how you found out about the secret passage? Sure thing, honey. I guess I owe you that much. I'll be extra detailed this time. Like I said yesterday, I wanted to play some slots at the slots hall for my semi-final poker match. Calm your nerves, as you do before all your poker matches, was it? Which makes sense. Slots hall is next to the locker room. And in the side hall where the secret passage would be. Yeah. I had been hanging around in the main hall by myself before then. When I saw that Libby gal and L-Flash leave the poker hall, they then went to the staff lounge. That's how I knew the first semi-final match ended and mine was to start before long. Anyway, shortly after that, I entered the side hall and saw the passage unveiled, with the case jammed between its doors. The case was quickly kicked out into the side hall by someone in the vault and the doors closed by itself. You could not make out who that person was? No, sadly not. Couldn't see who they were thanks to the darkness of the vault's interior. Then, as I was thinking about what I just saw, that Libby gal crashed into my back and we both fell. Without as much of an apology, she just picked herself up and ran into the locker room. Rude woman. That was the moment that Miss Toom dropped her quarter and went to grab her phone from her locker. Anyhow, I decided to just go into the slots hall after that. Which is where I found all the prize money in the bag I told you about yesterday. When I finally decided to bring that money back to the vault, I wanted to do it discreetly. So no one would get the wrong idea about seeing you with the bag of money you didn't steal, I gather. Right. That's when I remembered the secret passage I saw open earlier. Figured it would probably lead into the vault, so I checked it out from up close. I soon found out how to open the secret passage, and that's how I managed to get inside. Unbeknownst that the secret passage would close automatically and lock me in the vault, of course. So that is the whole tale, then. This case is getting quite complex. Can you keep track of all what was going on at the casino, Mr. Gavin? Naturally, Justice. Assuming both Mr. Tal and Miss Toom are innocent and their testimonies are accurate, that is. Did you figure it all out, sir? Then would you mind bringing me up to speed on what happened? I'd be happy to explain everything you don't understand, Justice. Just ask away. Thanks, Mr. Gavin. So why do you think that secret passage was kept open while Mr. Tal entered the side hall? Who who opened it and kept it jammed? True culprit, of course. Mr. Davis would have known about the secret passage somehow. As to why that secret passage was kept open by jamming it, culprit must have initially opened that secret passage in order to remove all of the prize money inside. To remove all the prize money inside, which is a little odd because they just left it. But I suspect their plan wasn't to steal the money, at least not at that point. Rather, it was to lure in the victim. Lure in the victim, sir? Perhaps the culprit knew the victim would often check up on the vault's contents through the door window. Thus, when the victim would see from his office that the money was gone and the passage was open, he'd unlock the vault door to investigate further, which would be the culprit's chance to strike. The culprit knocked out the victim and dragged him into the vault, as Miss Toom witnessed. But then, through the open secret passage, the culprit noticed Miss Tell entering the side hall. They unjammed the passage doorway in an attempt to hide what they were doing. It would seem that the culprit wasn't fast enough in doing this, for Miss Tell saw the open passage. The culprit was probably also unaware that Miss Toom witnessed the assault from the kitchen. The culprit's goal was to knock out the victim and put him into the vault? Precisely. But why, sir? Why indeed? Mr. Gavin, the trial will start again momentarily. My apologies, Justice. It would appear we've run out of time to discuss this further. Must return to the courtroom. Oh, yeah. Good luck, Mr. Gavin. It's only a few hours remaining. They don't convince the court that Wright is the killer. It's all over. I have to find a way somehow, but the question is, would it even be possible for me to do it? I suppose I can only hope there is something I can latch onto in Wright's upcoming testimony. And, well, never mind. Court will now reconvene. Mr. Wright, could you please take that stand? Guess I should state my name and occupation now then, right? If you would. Phoenix Wright, piano player. Mr. Wright, as it became apparent earlier, you were in the main hall of the casino after the murder. Would you mind telling the court about that in more detail? You know, I now kind of regret not elaborating what I did there before the recess already. I believe that gave some people here the wrong idea that it was all that important or questionable. Just a fair warning, I'm afraid my testimony will disappoint a bit after all the other commotion. After listening to it during the recess, I'm inclined to agree. It's honestly a waste of time. Mr. Gavin insisted we just had to continue the trial for it today, so I might as well hear it now. Disappointing or not, my life is riding on this testimony. It's the only thing I can pursue now. Oh then, the floor is yours. The floor is yours, Mr. Wright. Let's hear it. Right at the main hall. As you know by now, I was the other witness that was with Larry Butts when the murder occurred. Upon seeing it happen, we initially tried calling the police with the landline phone in the staff lounge. The landline phone was apparently broken, so we went to the main hall to use the payphone there instead, while Larry would guard the vault door. After I made the call, I decided to wait in the main hall from then on. Finally, at some point, Miss Toom came into the main hall. Police arrived soon afterwards. There. Is that clear up any doubts you had, Kristoph? I had a perfectly understandable reason as to why I was in the main hall. More importantly, I still have an airtight alibi at the exact moment of the murder. So I think we can now all agree to suspend procedures in order to go investigate who's the real killer. Why the rush, Wright? Do you have somewhere to be? Don't want to be late for my work shift, you know. I imagine you'd need some time investigating this case again before our usual dinner party, too. Mind if I ask you a few more questions first? You're still not convinced? Oh, it's not that, but there is no reason to not answer my questions if you're innocent, Alright then, there's no excuses at this time. Loss would cause you to lose the case or something. Let's just get started with the cross-examination, shall we? Everyone is feeling the heebie-jeebies about this. Alright. Turnabout is an old friend of yours, is correct? Pardon me for suggesting this, but how reliable would your account of the murder you witnessed be with him be then, really? How reliable would your account of the murder you witnessed with him be then, really? How do you mean? Wouldn't it be at all possible for the two of you to be in collusion? For example, you could have agreed to lie about what you saw, about the door being locked at the time. The two of you could even be accomplices in the actual murder. Good friends would be willing to establish that with each other if it became necessary, I dare say. I will not have you suggest such a thing about two friends of mine, Mr. Gavin. Don't you know that none of us condone murder or would agree to help each other with that? Spare me that nonsense. In fact, if Edgeworth is in on it as well, third friend prosecuting the case to ensure they get away with it. It's too perfectly fitting. To add to what Edgeworth said, yesterday was the first time I saw Larry again in 7 years. Not only would we have to agree to kill someone right out of the blue, we'd also have to plan what to do and agree what to say in order to keep our story straight. And all that during the poker tournament, without anyone else catching the wind of it. I think it's safe to say we couldn't have been each other's accomplice, at the very least. Well, I suppose so, then. I'm just a bit too paranoid to consider that his witness account could be a fabrication after all. Putting that off with accomplice would be absurd, even for Wright. Wouldn't it? Alright. Moving along. What did you after witnessing?
Hold it!
Would you elaborate on the landline phone for the rest of the court, if you please? Suppose by that you mean you just forgot about yourself, Kristoph? Just answer the question right. Right, no problem. I, of course, mean the phone on the victim's desk in his office. It was on the left side of the desk, near the yellow safe, remember? You're saying you did try to call the police using that? Exactly. Definitely makes sense, but it was the closest phone to our vicinity, right? It was the fastest option since my cell phone was stored in the locker room at the time. In fact, I didn't have my cell phone on me for most of the day because of the tournament rules. Hold on. I remember calling you on your cell phone yesterday, and you picked it up. Well, how did you get your phone back, precisely? Ah, good memory. But you called a little past 4, didn't you? That time the police had already investigated the contents of my phone and gave it back to me. Let's see. However, didn't Mr. Butts have a cell phone you could have contacted the police with? Even though he wasn't a contestant in the tournament, he had put his in the locker room too. In other words, landline phone and the staff lounge was our only really option at the time.
Hold it!
Oh no. What way do you mean, broken? No dial tone, I guess. Did you not try to find out what was wrong with it? Time was of the essence in that situation, so obviously. So no. We thought it was more productive to just call the police over some other way. Just maybe does something seem off with this? June would call the police? Ahem.
Hold it!
You had the 25 cents to operate the payphone with, I gather. Indeed I did. I had an extra $5 on me, which I used to buy a samurai dog during lunch with. Fair enough. $5 hot dog. Ridiculous. Received 25 cents for tourist change for my purchase, which I ended up using for the payphone. And you were comfortable leaving Mr. Butts all by himself at the staff lounge, right? Not an unreasonable question, considering we're talking about Larry here, I guess. I figured that since he was working at the casino as a security guard, it was probably okay. And he could handle guarding the vault door to make sure the killer wouldn't escape from there. Very well. So what did you do after making your phone call to the police?
Hold it!
So you didn't head back to the staff lounge and rejoin Mr. Butts. Why not? For one, I didn't trust the police to be able and find their way to the staff lounge by themselves. And thus I wanted to wait nearby the casino's entrance so I could guide into the crime scene. It's also that I wanted to keep track of everyone's movements after the murder happened. You know, ascertaining who was where and if anyone would pass me by in the main hall. It's a good thing to do to find who has an alibi and who has an opportunity to kill the victim. The main hall connects to various rooms, including the entrance, so it's the best location to do this. Did you have to learn anything from by doing that, right? I did, as a matter of fact.
Hold it!
Where did you see her come from, exactly? Came from the side hall, of course. I told her about what happened, and so we both decided to wait for the police to show up at that point. I suppose this was the moment Miss Toom left the locker room. Do you remember what time it was? About 15 minutes after I made my phone call, so I guess Miss Toom's story matches up that much. Since she came from the side hall, that also means she could have used the secret passage, too. I'd like to put the cross-examination on hold a moment. Mr. Gavin, I believe Mr. Wright has sufficiently explained his actions now, wouldn't you say? I must ask, is it really necessary to continue today's trial procedures? Just by luck. Wright testimonies yielded nothing, but I've come too far to back down now. It certainly is, Your Honor. I have very good reason to suspect Mr. Wright of this crime. As such, I'd like to cross-examine his testimony for just a bit longer. Mr. Gavin, it bears repeating that Mr. Wright still has a rock-solid alibi for the murder. What is your reason for thinking Mr. Wright could have done the crime? I would like to know that as well. It's not like there aren't any better leads to go on at the moment. Indeed. Perhaps Mr. Gavin fears his reputation would be bruised if he won't win the trial in a single day. I'm sorry, Mr. Gavin, but before I can allow you to continue this cross-examination, I'm afraid you have to explain your reasonings as to why one could possibly suspect Mr. Wright here. Of course, Your Honor. No problem at all. Up here, I just can't catch a break in this trial. It's true. The only reason I managed to get Wright on the stand was to make him clarify something. And if he did exactly that, I won't be able to keep him on there at this rate. I feel I can no longer play this by the book if I want to survive. Very well then. Let's just focus on making Wright look guilty here. I can worry about the details later and bluff my way through if necessary. For starters, Your Honor, the defense believes that Mr. Wright could have had a motive to kill the victim. Was that so? What would that motive be, Mr. Gavin? Quite simple. It was established by Miss Toom earlier that the poker tournament was a fraud. The team testing had brought a hefty $100,000 to put on the line, which they were unwittingly guaranteed to lose as part of the plan the victim laid out. Hold on. Wasn't this information that Wright wanted to keep under wraps? Otherwise, his daughter would find out that he had put the family in a severe financial risk. I think about letting this out doesn't feel right. Should I push forward? A crisis of conscience now? In my villainy simulator? It's less likely than you think. I'm going to try and play this route for some kind of good moral ending for Kristoph. Back off. Wright entrusted me with that information. I shouldn't do this. Mr. Gavin, I require a full answer. Gah. Spilling the beans of my life. My apologies. As I was saying, Mr. Wright is also one of the contestants in this poker tournament. Not only that, but the $100,000 in entry fee put in was all the money he owned. He initially hoped to double that amount with his skill in poker to win the tournament. However, the victim's con made the tournament unwinnable. And so when Mr. Wright learned of this, he decided to kill the victim, both to get his money back and as revenge for getting tricked by the victim. Well, this motive is certainly within the realm of possibilities, no?
Objection!
Is this truly why you suspect Mr. Wright of the murder here, Mr. Gavin? There's a huge problem with this proposed motive of yours. I'd be surprised if you didn't consider it a problem, you say? Indeed. How would Mr. Wright have known that the tournament was a fraud? This had to have been a secret between Miss Toom and the victim, of course the hoax wouldn't have worked. We only just learned about this little ploy of theirs from Miss Toom during the very trial today. That includes Mr. Wright. If you're going to claim that he could have known about it before, why would he even enter a tournament we already knew to be a hoax? Well, perhaps he was forced to enter the tournament despite knowing that. Oh dear. Are we gonna play our fake blackmail card? Blast! These arguments I'm making don't feel like the correct answer at all. But that shouldn't matter as long as it will convince the court all the same. Of course. How convenient. Yet another creative explanation brought to us by the defense so they don't have to backpedal. Funny how those only seem to get brought up after I point out the obvious flaws in their theories. Do you even have any evidence to suggest Mr. Wright was forced to enter this tournament? I mean, first off, you did miss the obvious trick of, he found out during the tournament, not before the tournament. So, like, you missed the obvious trick here, Kristoph. Wright found out during the tournament, which means he's already in and can't get out, can't get his money back, so... Mr. Agree with Mr. Edgeworth here. This theory is quite flimsy without any proof. Not enough reason to warrant suspicion on Mr. Wright, to say that at the very least. Something I could have avoided doing this, but now my hand has been forced. Oh, but I do in fact have evidence, Your Honor. Surely you don't think I'd make such a claim without any? Oh, really now? I mean, of course I never doubted that you did, Mr. Gavin. They both know something's up. This could really take a turn for the worse if I do not tread carefully here, but it should be fine. Just need to trust in my abilities. I'm the coolest defense in the West, after all. Well, Mr. Gavin, if you please would. Yeah, we're gonna pull up our fake poker.
Take that!
That's a tournament invitation from earlier, the one that was flipped in half by accident. Another. Please read it over very carefully, Your Honor. Huh. What's the meaning of this? It's addressed to Mr. Wright. Was this invitation sent to him? It says, you know what will happen to you if you do not show up. What? Well, it would appear the victim threatened Mr. Wright to enter the tournament. I do not know the extent of this threat or what it all means, but it makes for some, adequate conditions that could have led to murder. Why'd you say so, Mr. Wright? Ah, I see what's going on now. Now your behavior all makes sense, Kristoph. I should have known. I had my suspicions earlier. This confirms it. So he was suspecting me of trying to convict him before. Well, you can't stop me now, right? Oh boy. This is very dangerous. I'd begin this charade then. This invitation proves you had a motive to kill the... Oh? Big mistake, Mr. Gavin. Accusing a friend of mine is one thing, but using unscrupulous methods to do so is another. I did warn you about using any underhanded tactics before this trial began. And you've crossed this line, I cannot promise that you'll make it out of this one unscathed. Mr. Edgeworth, no, this evidence is... Right, remember when you gave me your account of the events yesterday? You showed me your invitation for the poker tournament that time. Oh, well. I recall it not being addressed to you, nor threatening you in the slightest. Well, where are you going with this, Mr. Edgeworth? I'll tell you, Your Honor. Mr. Gavin here insinuates that the evidence he just presented was the invitation Mr. Wright received. However, since it's different from the invitation I knew Mr. Wright had on him yesterday, what do you think that means? You mean to say? I am, Your Honor. I believe Mr. Gavin just presented forged evidence to the court. See, there's a way out of this. Because we got this invitation from Libby. We can argue that he swapped his invitation with Libby's invitation. But that would be a major offense. Surely Mr. Gavin wouldn't stoop to that. He's a member of the Bar Association Review. He's a member of the Bar Association Review Board. That'd go over such cases after all. I wouldn't assume Mr. Gavin is beyond forging evidence because of that, Your Honor. Where there are positions of perceived virtue, there will be people abusing it for immoral gains. He is no doubt familiar. Confound it, Edgeworth. This is quickly starting to look like my worst-case scenario. Very well. This will be where a bluff comes in. What a gratuitous outburst, Mr. Edgeworth. Rather unbecoming of you, I must say. Simply because this invitation looks different from the one you saw Mr. Wright had yesterday doesn't mean it's a forgery. It could still be the invitation that the victim sent to Mr. Wright. Of course, the tournament's rules state that Wright would have to bring this invitation, but all Mr. Wright would have to do is get rid of this invitation at some point during the tournament. What if Mr. Wright swapped this invitation with one of the other contestants at some point? So sorry, Mr. Gavin. But I have solid evidence that what you just presented is, in fact, a forgery. You didn't think I'd even be making this claim otherwise, did you? What? During the last recess, I took the liberty of contacting the hacking expert I spoke of earlier, this Trybien. He informed me that he indeed managed to gain access to the victim's email account. Oh, fuck, alright. This we should have saw coming. And from that, he learned that the victim only sent 3 emails in the past few months. One was the request to hire Mr. Toom for his poker tournament scheme. Another email went to KB Security, ordering a renovation for his personal vault. The final email was the invitation he sent to all contestants invited for the poker tournament. As I, for one, do care about transparency, I'd like to submit this evidence to the court. I see. The court accepts this evidence, of course. Curious. I should hopefully be clear from this now. Personal invitation supposedly sent to Mr. Wright that Mr. Gavin just presented wasn't found anywhere in the victim's email account. I'd say that's ample proof that the victim never sent this invitation to Mr. Wright, proving it's a forgery. Trying to pull a fast one, are we? There's still another scenario you have yet to consider, namely, the victim may have deleted the email containing this invitation to Mr. Wright from his email account. It'd be reasonable for the victim to cover his tracks like that when sending Mr. Wright a threat, no? Come now, Mr. Gavin, if the victim was prudent enough to delete his own shady emails, why did he delete the email and all the other correspondence with Miss Toom? To mention that this scenario you propose is similar to the one where you courted Miss Toom. Which I mean, it's impossible to prove whether an email was deleted or not, or that it never even existed. So how will you prove that this evidence you presented is in fact real? Well, we could. Hold on. Well, aren't you going to suggest the evidence must be in Mr. Wright's emails? All we have to do is ask Mr. Wright to show us the emails he received lately, don't we? the invitation you presented is genuine, then it's likely we'll find it among Mr. Wright's emails instead of a normal tournament invitation. But if not, I'm afraid we'll have to assume that it was forged. Blasted Edgeworth. He knows we'll find nothing in Mr. Wright's emails because I forged this evidence. We should have considered this all was yet another trap he laid out by him. How do I get out of this situation now? Well, Wright, how about you show us your email inbox then? This is getting quite interesting. I never expected she would try to frame me. Right? What are you doing? It's clear Gavin is trying to accuse you with evidence he forged. Prove him wrong, now! Edgeworth, please don't claim that without considering who the true forger could be first. You could ruin the career of someone innocent with such accusations. Won't stand for that. Wow, he's really standing by us. Right? What is happening? Why is Wright covering for me here? So is the evidence Mr. Gavin presented a forgery or not? It in all likelihood is, Your Honor. What Mr. Gavin just presented is indeed not the one I ever received. However, I seriously doubt that Mr. Gavin knew that this evidence was forged. Wow, goddamn! And the offense of presenting forgeries is based on whether you did so knowingly. That must be a new change, because that certainly wasn't what happened 7 years ago. I know, who do you suggest it was that forged this evidence, Mr. Wright? That would be none other than our little swindling actress, Libby Toom. I can attest that the invitation Mr. Gavin just presented was given to him by Miss Toom yesterday. Oh, thank you, Wright, for playing the card that Kristoph forgot about. Wright, what are you saying? You knew that invitation originally belonged to Miss Toom. Doesn't prove it was Miss Toom who forged this evidence. Gavin could have added these forged lines to the invitation sometime after his investigation. But it make most sense for Mr. Gavin to do that, Edgeworth. Only fitting reason for an attorney to use forged evidence knowingly. He would use it as their ace in the hole in order to win the case. Yeah, who would ever do that? But this forged invitation it specifically addresses me. And I had already informed Mr. Gavin of my alibi during the investigation yesterday. Why did he then choose to frame someone whom he already knows to have a perfect alibi? He could have chosen to frame someone like Miss Toom, who has no alibi instead. Perhaps he specifically wanted to frame you, I suppose. Edgeworth is shockingly right, but in this scenario... Edgeworth is more right than he realizes. The issue being, in this scenario, Gavin having the frame right in order to not have his soul condemned to hell is not a scenario that Wright could ever perceive of. Why would he? And why now all of a sudden, after us being friends for 7 years? To mention, why desperately push to do this today with this case I got a perfect alibi for? If he was out to get me, then there would be much easier and safer ways to do that than with forgery. This wouldn't make any sense if Kristoph was behind this, Edgeworth. Now, Miss Toom, on the other hand, would have a motive to frame someone if she were the true killer. Upon seeing me by myself in the main hall, she likely assumed that I had been alone beforehand, too. She had no idea that I had a watertight alibi during the murder, which is why she thought she could frame me. There had been plenty of time to secretly add those forged lines to her own invitation yesterday. What she needed would be a writing utensil and some skills to add these lines to her own invitation. Then give that evidence to the defense attorney for this case, convincing them I was the culprit. What do you think, Edgeworth? Fine. Edgeworth obviously knows the darker side of Gavin's reputation. Hence his hyper-awareness to something that Gavin might pull. Edgeworth here is hyper-focused on Gavin being the cause of this forgery. While, Wright is hyper-focused on the case itself and the progression through the case. And with him following the progression through the case, he's at the point where Libby is very suspicious and very likely the culprit. So... Plus... What's likely Wright's thought process here is Kristoph's acting weird, very cagey about the invitation, very cagey in a lot of ways about continuing the trial, very cagey about getting answers from Wright. Of course, this would be the reason why. In his experience, forged evidence is the key to winning. Like, why would you use a piece of forged evidence obscurely like this, instead of using it to win? So in his eye, plus he remembered the key detail of, this invitation was a copy that we got from Libby. That is a fact that we can confirm. That is a fact that canonically happened in this case. Gavin forgot, Wright didn't. So Wright is still connecting the dots and saying that we got this from Libby. That scenario also exists. So it also means that Wright doesn't entirely distrust Kristoph yet, despite this accusation. I'll concede your scenario does make more sense. Just thinking that I'd never forged evidence. He's even going out of his way to explain this in a way that I'd not get reprimanded for this action. Does he genuinely trust me that much, or is this some kind of trick? Wait, you sneak. This could very well be some theatrics to garner my sympathy. Of course. This is a trap, designed to bring me out, to back me out of my accusation against him. I now take the easy way out and pretend I didn't know that the evidence was forged. I'm essentially admitting my basis for suspecting Wright was unfounded. I can't go admitting that I knew the evidence was forged either. On top of that, there was no feasible way to argue that this evidence was never forged as well. I suppose I have no choice but to humble myself. This forgery only caused me more trouble. To cut my losses and play dumb, I'll have to find another angle to base my accusation on. The only issue is that Miss Tomb is not found to be the killer. Put her motive to frame Wright into doubt. Other potential reasons why Miss Tomb framed Wright can be argued down the road. Reasons such as he thought Wright was the killer, or the likes. Appeared at least more plausible than Mr. Gavin made to deal with the devil to get rid of Mr. Wright. My apology to the court. I was not aware this invitation was a fake. It is as Mr. Wright says. It would not make sense if I were the forger of this evidence. I suppose we can assume you had no part in this. This won't look good for Miss Tomb, however. Still, I am disappointed with your carelessness, Mr. Gavin. I'd expected better from you. See, he's got a perfect route to play this off. Like, I am sorry, Your Honor. These thoughts that my good friend Phoenix Wright could possibly have had a motive here. I've been skewing my judgment all day. Moreover, I'm afraid this leaves you without a basis for your accusation against Mr. Wright. Not exactly, Your Honor. There was still something else I had my doubts about. Just where I'm now forced to make something up on the spot, I suppose. The forged evidence may not have panned out, but you still bluff by proposing a different scenario and pretend it's the truth. What needs evidence? I can convince everyone of anything without it. Still something else. That's rich, Gavin. There's no motive, no opportunity to commit the crime. No decisive evidence linking to Mr. Wright. What else could there possibly be? As if you're specifically out to get him. Let's at least humor him, shall we? Why should we? So far, this extension proposed by Mr. Gavin has been a complete waste of time. I want to try and understand why Kristoph suspects me. I can only assume something happened that made him wary of me. Maybe there was something I did or said that made me unintentionally seem like the culprit? Regardless, I cared too much about my friendship with Kristoph to let it get ruined by something like that. That's why I want to know his arguments so I can disprove them and dispel any reasons for doubt. It's what any friend would do. Don't make this any harder for me than it already is, right? Fine, I'll comply. Mark my words, right? There is something suspicious about Mr. Gavin's behavior here. Don't say I didn't warn you. Well, Mr. Gavin? What else was there that you wanted to tell us? We can't deny that Mr. Wright still had an opportunity to go to the secret passage, no? It was only after the murder had happened, which he had no opportunity to commit. Of course, be that as it may. I disagree that Mr. Wright had no opportunity to commit the murder, however. Mr. Wright saw the murder occur together with Mr. Butts. They both have a perfect alibi. Not necessarily. There was one scenario that could have happened where that wouldn't be the case. Namely, what if Mr. Wright and Mr. Butts never saw the victim get stabbed? What if they only saw him die? Considering that these two witnesses never exactly saw the killer where the victim was stabbed, I must wonder if they even saw the victim get stabbed at all at the time. I'm not sure what you mean by all this, Mr. Gavin. Think back to the moment where Mr. Toombs saw the victim get pulled into the vault. What if the killer stuck the knife into the victim's back then, but the victim's death wasn't instant? Something feels off again. What proposing doesn't feel like what truly happened at all. Wait, why am I so concerned about that now? Lying to the court never used to bother me at all. What do I care if it's not the truth? It never stopped me before now, didn't it? Just focus. Oh my god, he actually picked up a little bit of a trace of morality from the first half of this trial. After stabbing the victim, the killer then locked the victim inside the vault. A little later, when Mr. Wright and Mr. Butts arrived at the staff lounge, the victim finally succumbed to his wounds. Which is what our two witnesses saw. Surely this haphazard theory of yours isn't your reason for accusing Mr. Wright. There isn't even any evidence to suggest that this could have happened. I must agree with the prosecution here. Without evidence, this theory is by no means tangible to consider. Ah, but Your Honor, of course I do have evidence to support this claim. At least I do hope so, but it is bluff or die here. You seem quite confident, Mr. Gavin. In that case, I hope you don't mind if we up the ante to make sure the court's time isn't wasted here. Not at all, naturally. Very well then, I will ask you. Evidence suggests the victim's death was not instant. The autopsy?
Take that!
The time range on the time of death, perhaps? You take a close look at the victim's autopsy report. Notice how the cause of death states blood loss due to stab wound in the back. That implies death may not have been instant, wouldn't you agree? I also would think instantaneous death would have been mentioned in the report if it had been the case. I'm already certain when I ask this coroner later, he'll tell me the victim's death was instant, but in the meantime, let's say for the sake of argument that the victim's death was indeed not instant. How does this specifically make you consider Mr. Wright as the killer? Certainly in this scenario, he could have stabbed the victim, but so could anyone else have. Think of it this way, Mr. Edgeworth. The killer knocked out the victim behind. The victim wouldn't have known who his assailant was. The killer stuck the knife into the victim's back without killing him and locked him in the vault. And the killer would have created the perfect opportunity to give themselves a fake alibi. What they'd have to do is return to the scene of the crime later with an oblivious companion in tow. Since the vault door would be nigh impossible to break open, the victim would die inside of blood loss. If the killer's companion was gullible enough upon seeing this happen through the vault window, he believed someone inside the vault had just killed the victim. Thinking the true killer was with the witness couldn't have done it. Fine, I'll indulge just a bit further. Then out of the two witnesses who would have had this supposed fake alibi, why would the killer be Mr. Wright? Well, that's where the opportunity of being able to use the secret passage comes in, of course. The killer had to go back into the vault to complete their plan. Once again, what good does going back there do? The victim would already be dead at that point. After stabbing the victim and locking him in the vault, the killer still had to put something in there. If they didn't, it became apparent that someone from outside the vault could have done the crime too. The only time this could have been done was after the victim was already dead. All played along as well then. What did the killer put inside the vault to make it look like someone from outside didn't do the crime? Is it the inflatable steel samurai?
Take that!
No, it's not. Don't take this the wrong way, Mr. Gavin, but what are you even trying to do here at the moment? Whatever do you mean, Your Honor? This is what the killer had to put inside the vault. I just demonstrate to the court what it was with evidence. My penalty were invented, oh no! Rats! No, this theory I'm proposing is a lie, but I at least have to make sure it makes sense. I shouldn't overthink this. There's one item the killer must have had after locking in the victim. Alright. Alright.
Take that!
A key. The vault key, you say? What else? The killer needed this key to lock the victim inside the vault, of course. The goal was to make the victim bleed to death so the killer could secure themselves a fake alibi. It would then be important that the victim was in a location where he couldn't escape from. But this key was found outside the vault by the police later. It became obvious that someone had locked the victim inside the vault instead. As such, the killer had to use the secret passage to go back into the vault and plant the key inside. Yet the only time the killer could have done this was after the victim had died. Otherwise, the victim would be able to escape the vault, but the secret passage would be open. The only person who'd fit as the killer in this scenario would be someone who both had access to the secret passage and had an alibi in the staff lounge. None other than Phoenix Wright. There. Won't you all agree that this scenario is both valid and possible? They do not seem convinced. Are they not buying my bluff? Well, I'd have expected this kind of theory crafting from a rookie attorney. Not from the coolest defense in the West. Mr. Edgeworth, your opinion on this? I believe this theory speaks for itself, Your Honor. It's like the most convoluted, conjectural, and questionable theory I've heard. I mean, fair. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair. Not to mention paranoid, considering Mr. Gavin insisted we'd continue the trial today for this. Mr. Gavin, you're saying that the killer managed to stab the victim without killing him somehow. Then time to visit the staff lounge with someone oblivious for a fake alibi. All while expecting them to make a false assumption that the victim was only stabbed at that point. That is as ridiculous as it sounds. Even without considering all that, I'd like to remind you all that we don't consider these theories just because they are technically possible. Anyone can think of a theory of how else a crime could have gone without decisive evidence. It's just rather useless to do so when plenty of other possibilities are still on the table. That's why we only consider an unlikely theory when the rest is proven to be impossible. He's right. My desperation to make Wright look guilty, I ignored such a crucial element to all this. I had to make him something. I had no other choice. Blast it! Is this tactic going to fail now too? What else can I do here? As such, this theory is by no means valid grounds to accuse Mr. Wright on, to say the least. But to ease Mr. Gavin's paranoid worries, I suppose I shall pay the coroner a visit later today. Then I can provide an updated autopsy report for him tomorrow that debunks this theory. Well spoken, Mr. Wright. Well spoken. Mr. Wright, what is your response to all this? Let's have one last question for Mr. Gavin. The small possibility that I am the killer really the reason you suspect me? Perhaps I can use this. If I can't win through logic, then maybe I can still win from an emotional angle. Right. The possibility that I'll admit I can't get out of my head. If my trusted friend turns out to be a murderer, that'd be awful. Please, Wright, I need to be absolutely sure that this scenario isn't what truly happened. You know this today, or it'll keep gnawing at me. You understand, don't you? I understand, Kristoph. I can see why that would worry you. I wouldn't want you to lose sleep or feel distressed during our dinner party over it all. I'd like to present proof that the proposed scenario is impossible. You motherfucker! Mr. Wright, are you saying you have evidence related to this case? Indeed I do. Sorry for not mentioning it before. I wasn't aware of this either. How and why did you hide this from the police, Wright? That will become quite apparent when I show it. As for the why, showing it would require me to testify about it, which I'll admit was something I wanted to avoid before. Thus, I thought with the already given testimony by Larry, it'd be redundant and overkill anyways. And now that Mr. Gavin still isn't convinced, I figured it's the perfect proof to clear up his doubts. Without further ado, I'd like to show you all this. Your badge on your beanie? Can't be. It's that thing he also used during the mission case in the future. When Mr. Wright visited Kristoph Gavin's cell, he brought with him a small video camera. What? He recorded his entire conversation with you, Mr. Gavin. It's a hidden camera, isn't it? You're quite sharp, Kristoph. Yes, it is. Mainly placed on my beanie so I can see all I see. Mr. Elflash didn't show up to deal for my poker match. I already had a feeling something was bad happened to him. Just in case my hunch was right, I decided to record these unfolding events with the video camera. Turned it on right before Larry and I entered the staff lounge when we wanted to look for Mr. Elflash. You recorded everything you witnessed yesterday? Well, well. It would seem Mr. Wright's already out-of-sight alibi just grew even stronger. If you would, please show this camera footage of yours, Mr. Wright. Gladly. Oh, but fair warning. You were about to see the murder happen in this video, so viewer discretion is advised. Oh, that's strange. Mr. Elflash doesn't seem to be in his office earlier, either. Any idea where he could be? I guess he could be inside the... There's someone there! Help me! It sounds like Mr. Elflash! He came from the vault! You gotta help him, Nick! Larry, hold up! We should stick close! Nick, come quick! Mr. Elflash is in the vault! Just tried the door, but it won't open! What? Let me try, Larry! You don't budge. Must be locked. Help me. Someone just attacked me. They put me inside this thing. Who was it? They there inside with you? They attacked me from behind, so I didn't see. I'm definitely alone in here. Alright, let's see if we can get you out of here. What? Elflash! Damn! Knife. Larry, call the police now. I've already tried, Nick, but the phones here in the office it's not working. Dang it. Okay, guard the door. Try the payphone in the main hall then. Okay. Beep, beep, beep. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's been stabbed at the Elflash Casino. Please send help. Understood. We'll dispatch a unit to your location immediately. Beep, 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 beep. And there you have it. Witness account is not any more clear than that, wouldn't you say? It's a little bit shocking to see, but I must concur. Court accept this video footage as evidence. Just can't believe this piece of evidence exists. Things weren't already bad enough for me. Pounding on the door, stabby stabby. Stab in the back, that's correct. Curious. How can I possibly convince the court that Wright did the murder now? Let's recap what this means for the scenario you proposed earlier, Kristoph. First and foremost, this video proves I never went to the side hall and used the secret passage. Second, it's very clear from the footage that the victim was killed then and there, so I witnessed it. The victim's scream upon getting stabbed should tell you that much. His death looks like it was instant as well, considering he didn't even move anywhere before getting stuck. Finally, suggesting that the key was already put in the vault after the victim died is wrong too. And why is that? Check out this particular part in the video again. Closely at the victim's left hand by his chest. You see that blue diamond shape there? Does anything look familiar to you? clearly had the vault key on him when I saw him die. In other words, nobody bought that key through the secret passage into the vault later. Thus, the killer had no reason to even enter the vault again after the victim was dead either. There's something odd about that, however. The victim had the key on him. Why didn't he use it to unlock the door and escape the vault? And that's why I propose that the victim locked himself in the vault to protect himself from the killer. It's also why I think the killer isn't necessarily Miss Ital. What the evidence does underline is that the killer entered the vault through a secret passage and stabbed the victim. At the very moment I was in the staff lounge. To put it all together, the killer couldn't possibly have been me. There, does that convince you now, Kristoph? On the fence.